Well, hello, and much more excitement today than normal because I get to try a type of quad I haven't flown before, which is this. This is the GepRC Sparrow. Now, I've been lusting after this for quite a while because it just looked really nicely put together. So the reason I'm so excited is what we've got here is a ready to fly, literally bind and fly 3-inch model. Now, I've done loads of 2-inch quads and a fair amount of 5-inch ones, but aside from a Vortex 150, I've really not done much on 3-inch before, and this is a really good looking build. So let's get it out of the box. And please see they've got a QR code just here to download a manual. But aside from that, the only thing in the box was this. Yay, a case. I love cases for carrying things in. Of course, the only downside to this one is if you had the props on it wouldn't fit in. But let's take this out and just admire it if we would a second. Because this is rather gorgeous. It is fairly heavy. This is fairly tough. It looks like anodized aluminium. These motors, you would not believe how much tightness there is on there. Those magnets seem uber strong. But this is a really lovely spec on this. This is a Runcam microswift with 2.1mm lens, my favourite. Now, when I first looked at this, I thought, oh, excellent, it's got an XM+, but just checking the spec and noticing there was a little port there where there's a plug in it. It's actually a FreeSky RXSR, which I think is the little telemetry version of the XM+, I think. I can't remember, but it's, you know, FreeSky. 2 antennas here. I don't think this has got an OSD on board the flight controller, but I'll check that in Betaflight when I get there. But we've got some nice details. I mean, it does feel fairly heavy for the size it is, but it takes 2 to 4S, and so running 4S, this is going to get absolutely insane amounts of thrust off these 3,500 kV motors. It suggests you can put a GoPro on top of there, which seems kind of crazy. Where is my GoPro? Pretend case would go like that. It's pretty big, but it would go. And we've got a nice, it's actually got the markings on here to say what angle the camera's at, which is about 35 degrees at the moment, coming up to 40 degrees, so it's quite aggressive, but that's a really nice wide angle camera. So other stuff in the case here, you've got the OSD cable for the Swift Micro. Good bunch of props there, looks like you've got about 3 sets, just eyeballing it. One of these nice silicon based pads that go underneath and create a nice friction element for the battery. A couple of battery straps, one for the battery, and you've got slots here if you put a camera on, and some good old stickers. Yeah, well, let's get it bound up, let's get it onto Betaflight and see what we need to mess around with there before we actually fly it. But it's pretty much ready to go, look at it, awesome.
Well, I did this Betaflight section and narrated it, but my audio is cut off, so I'm going to have to try and reconstruct things as best I can. So one thing I picked up immediately is this was only running 3.15 of Betaflight, which is really pretty early now, and it's running the PicoBlocks target. PicoBlocks tells me that there's no OSD on this one. So configuration wise, things are set up, and once again we can see there's no OSD there, so that bit's pretty certain. What I did pick up actually is there was a cable going from the power input to the camera, which tells me it's probably actually a Swift Micro 2, which shows you the OSD of the voltage, which is quite handy. But we'll come to that in a second. Anyway, this is all fairly standard. I did pick up on the tuning that some work had been done here. We see slight differences on the RC rate and the super rates. The modes were set up to basically put air mode on all the time. It was in acro. So I was just double checking that it was definitely a PicoBlocks, and on that basis I thought, you know what, normally I want to fly with what it comes with, but this is so old now, I thought let's go and flash it. Now this is kind of where things got interesting, because I went down to PicoBlocks thinking, oh, I just need to get the latest PicoBlocks firmware, and it only went to 3.17, which was weird. So after a little bit of checking out, what I found out is that it's now called FF underscore PicoBlocks. As you see, the current software is 3.25, which is just an age away from what it ships with, so I think it's at least worth doing this. Now, one thing I did do, because I just don't trust the backup stuff at the moment, the sort of normal backup you have doesn't seem to work. So what I did is I did a dump on the CLI and then saved that, and I also took a screenshot of every single page of the tabs in Betaflight just so I can go back and check them out. So yeah, initially I tried using this backup and restore section in the main bit, but didn't seem to do anything. So just pasting in the text file from the dump basically restored most of the settings, and I could just double check everything else and it's all okay. So all I did in here of the changes wise is add mode to stop, as I normally do. Obviously I bound up my receiver, and in my modes I've added my normal arm and angle and beeper and air mode, and that was about it. So if you look carefully here, you can see the little blue wire that's coming from the power into the camera, and also the fact that this camera has wired in the little adapter to plug the OSD cable into to change your settings. So let's just go through those now quickly. So this is what we get when we power on, and you see you get the normal run cam startup. I've just got the lens cap on the screen here, so that's kind of how it looks with the pure darkness. I was quite surprised they hadn't set up a model name for themselves. This is just the pure defaults. All I wanted to do here is just double check that WDR was on and the night mode I like set to colour. So yep, WDR on and day and night is set to colour. If you come out of the normal menu and then hold the up button on the OSD controller for 3 seconds, you then get into the OSD menu, and from here you can change what you have on your screen. You can set your pilot name if you wish to, and you can basically position stuff on the screen. There's also another way of going in and calibrating the voltage, but mine looked like it was fairly spot on, or at least close enough for me. So what I decided to do here is change my alarm on my voltage to 14 volts, and then go ahead and change my pilot name to Karike. Now, the reason I actually always have my name somewhere is not just a case of, oh, look at me, I've got a name. It's also, if you're ever flying with other people, there's 2 reasons to have your name there. Firstly is if you're in a really big group and someone sort of shouts, hey, who's on race band 2? The answer is sometimes, well, nobody, it just happened to bleed in there. But if your name's at least there, they can come and identify you. And that name being there is, we've had it happen where I've taken off and my friend had accidentally tuned into my screen thinking it was him and he was flying, and we only then found out it wasn't him because we heard a big crash behind us, and he's saying, well, I'm still flying, and then he realised his controls weren't responding in the same way that I was flying. And so yeah, having a name on there is pretty useful. So yeah, but what I basically did is set my name up, set my positions, just put them right in the corners, out the way as much as possible, but so I could see them, and then got on with it. This is an 850 milliamp 4S. It's an XF power one, which I don't particularly like. I've got a few others of different makes to try as well. Quite chunky, but I think it'll carry it okay. I just wanted to point a few other things out, one of which I thought was really good, one of which I think is a bit of a miss. The thing I wanted to say that was good was this this silicone pad here that stops the battery from moving. This is the first time I've seen somebody cut holes in so it actually fits around the screws really nicely. Normally you sort of have to ram these about a bit, and it's a bit of a hard thing, and it doesn't really fit very well, but this fits really nicely. Now the miss is in the camera angle. I had a look through the camera, used my FPV goggles, and I saw that, you know, I wouldn't be able to see the floor, and I thought I'd just poke it down a little bit, but found some resistance. And what it is this frame actually gets in the way of the orange run cam surround, so you can't bring it forward anymore unless you basically shave down a bit of the orange thing here at the side, which is a bit weird. I mean, it's about 33 to 35 degrees, which is quite aggressive. It certainly looks like it's putting up, but we'll see how it is when I fly. It's a very wide angle lens, so hopefully that won't produce a problem. I did also find that having followed the QR code in the box, because I wanted to check how the VTX worked, that went to a dead link, which is a bit of a shame. I managed to find instructions for it. It's just a single button thing, and it's one of the normal
You press it quickly, it changes the channels, you hold it in for 2 seconds, it goes through the bands. Fortunately they've labelled their bands correctly, so F is Fat Shark. And you hold it in for much longer and you can cycle through the powers, which I think is something like 25, 50, 200. Yeah, so all that's left to do is to fly this thing, so let's go out and try it now. Well, hello from the field, where it's still more marsh than field, but the temperature's not too bad, about 5 degrees, and there's a moderate breeze, but the wind chill factor shouldn't be too bad. We're here to try the GepRC Sparrow, looking massive with this little 850 4S battery, but we'll give it a quick line of sight and then we'll take it for an FPV flight and see how it does. Well, obviously here we mostly had wind noise, but aside from that, hover was fine. The motors felt especially sort of smooth. They sort of whizzed more than the normal spinning noise. No problems caused, let's get on with the FPV. Okay, so here we go for the maiden FPV flight. And I have to say, I started off using those XF batteries, and God, they were awful. The battery just sagged really quickly. So I got barely 2 minutes out of these, just, you know, not doing anything really hard, just going around. So, you know, I got through the 2 batteries just to make sure it was okay. I had a few little fly pass, which looks like this, which is always fun to do. And what I thought I'd do then is skip over to battery number 3, which is a Nano-tech, which I don't regard as a fantastic battery, but certainly better than these XF ones. Okay, so off we go on the Nano-tech, and I feel I can at least start talking about it properly now. Now we're using a proper battery. And what can I say? Well, it's smooth. It really is really nice to fly. Straight out the box, it was like, well, this is unexpected, because it's, you know, it's a pretty small little quad. But it feels very much like you're flying a 5-inch. That you can say that in 2 ways, really. Firstly, there's a sort of smoothness and a speed to it. Secondly, you know, it feels like it's got some weight behind it, and I think that really adds to how it manages to get through the air without, you know, being buffeted about or anything. So it just feels really good. The only thing that I felt was slightly different from a 5-inch is in the punch out. And I can't really see this in the DVR footage. It looks like I'm able to, you know, get up some height when I want to. But it just seems, my feeling is it's missing that sort of really explosive burst to be able to get up there. So the forward speed is really good. It really tears along the ground nicely. But if you want to go straight up, that's where you feel there's some more weight behind it, and there's less power than the 5-inch. Aside from that, though, I've got to say, I'm really pleased with the way this flies. Obviously, there's no Betaflight OSD to do any of the tuning, but the tune out the box, really good. I didn't feel anything was wrong. The rates felt pretty good to me. It obviously felt nice and smooth, so not a problem there. Camera angle wise, it's kind of just on the level of how I'm comfortable. I would say that perhaps if you were just starting out and you were newer to quads, then this might be a little too aggressive for you. You know, it's about 5 degrees or so what I'd like it to be past, but in flight it makes for going really fast. You just have to be a little bit more careful when coming in for your landing, obviously. One thing I am picking up on watching the DVR footage back is we seem to have this sort of I wouldn't call it interference exactly. We seem to have some sort of lines and flickering on the VTX, which I don't remember from flying it. But obviously it doesn't look as clean as some. The picture's very nice, obviously, from the Swift Micro 2. And we don't really have a problem with, you know, losing picture as such. We've just got a little linear dipole, and it does okay round the trees. Some breakup as you'd expect, but nothing too bad. It is on with a UFL connector, so you can swap that out if you want to. So I don't know if this sort of flickering is because of that linear dipole. I can try swapping it out and see if we've got any, see if it gets better. But again, it's flyable. It just doesn't look very pretty when you look back on the DVR footage. Again, we'd always prefer an OSD for Betaflight point of view for looking at voltages and things, but this is the next best thing. The only thing that I don't like about the RunCam
OSD in the camera is the timer. The timer just goes from when the thing's powered on. I wish they could have it to say, okay, obviously it doesn't know when it's armed, but if it's like there has been a certain amount of power going through, or maybe it can detect a power drop, and that's like, well, you know, you're flying then. That would be more useful. So it's limited use. However, from this battery, I was quite impressed because I'm flying around. I'm not taking it easy. I'm just messing around, having a good old time, and I got a good 4 minutes out of this. I'll put the exact time up here, but yeah, it was pretty good. So coming into land here, and it's not too bad. You just need to come nice and slow and low, and you'll be fine. Okay, so not sure if I've lost my mind, but it'll fit on there, so let's try it. I mean, it feels pretty damn heavy now. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't think it's the perfect fit, but let's try it, find out. Okay, GoPro on this little thing. You can see that the GoPro is pointing back at quite an angle. I thought I'd just initially put the overlay of the DVR footage on just so you can see there's a difference. And also the way the voltage goes down. You see what happened there? You see the whole quad go backwards. All I did is do a bit of a punch out, and this really displaced the weight and it all fell backwards. And this happened a couple of times, so if you're going to fly with this, and I wouldn't necessarily say do it, because look at the way my battery is draining. You have to fly in a different way. Again, that went back there when I didn't want it to. It's kind of, you have to fly it for the camera. You can't fly it normally, which kind of defeats the object, because if you want nice HD footage of yourself flying around normally, you're not going to get it putting a normal GoPro on this one. So I think a GoPro Session is too heavy for this quad. Find a different HD camera to put on here, but it will take it. You can fly it around. It's just it's not great. It is smooth though. I got to give it that. But the other thing about having that additional weight on it, I found it really hard coming in for landing. There's just this too much inertia, so when it gets going, it's hard to pull it back, because that agility you had from the quad is gone, because now it's just doesn't have the cornering ability it did.
Well, in case you couldn't work it out, I really like this. Really a joy to fly. I don't have a whole lot of experience with 3-inch quads, but this is certainly the best one I've flown so far. Just so smooth out the box, and I was surprised at the flight time I managed to get out of that Nano-tech battery. That's really impressive. If we've got some niggles, and we've had to search quite hard for them, it's the fact that you can't put it back in its case like this, because the props get in the way, and because these motors are so small, trying to hold them and untighten the screws is quite hard for using your hands. You need some grippy thing for it. Also, the VTX wasn't the best picture ever, but I might try swapping this out, see what happens. Try it on a different strength, see if that helps. And of course, you couldn't move the camera angle down anymore. That was fine for me. For a pure beginner who might want it a little bit straighter, they might struggle a little bit there. It flies very much like a 5-inch quad, but why would you spend money on this instead of a 5-inch quad? Well, firstly, because it's diddly and little and super cute. I struggle here because I was like, why would you need an excuse to buy more and more quads? They're great. But yeah, smaller equals less obnoxious for people around you if you have problems there. I mean, this screams around, but it doesn't scream as much as a 5-inch. That's something. It's easier to transport, of course, if you're going away and stuff. Crucially though, I stuck this on the kitchen scales, admittedly not the most accurate things, along with the Nano-tech battery that I used, and it came into 248 grams, which is underneath that magic 250. So if you are worried about all these new laws that are going to come in and restrict quads unless they're under a certain weight, then getting a sort of 3-inch like this could be your way of carrying on, where you get to turn around to people and say, it doesn't matter, it doesn't count as a quad, even though you're screaming around the field at an absolute rate. So big thanks to Gearbest who sent us along to review. Really enjoyed it, and I was going to try and get hold of a few more of these 3-inch quads just to see how it compares and see how the whole range is, because now I've flown one and it's this good, I'm keen to see what the others are like. But of course there's a linky down below where you can find some more details on the product. But for now, I will catch you in the next video. See you later, bye bye.